Have you ever had a kid just start screaming? Like they were fine, normal up to that point. And suddenly it seems like they can't handle life anymore. Like a switch flipped and everything sets them off. When my daughter was 4 years old, suddenly this sweet, compliant child turned into someone we didn't know. This is the story of how God asked me to listen, and not just to her. Hi, I'm Morgiana Anderson. I'm mom to 8 kids, and I'm passionate about helping mothers who are deeply invested in their children's mental and emotional health, happiness, and freedom, not just when they're little, but throughout their lives, because parenting is the ultimate long game. If that's you, and you want some health and happiness and freedom at the same time, you're in the right place. So like and subscribe and stick around. It's not abnormal for 4-year-olds, developmentally, to be figuring out relationships and communication and the way life works, and to be irritable or easily off balance. But this was extreme. I was confused. I had other children, and I knew my daughter from before, and I'd never seen this happen before. She went from being my cuddly, sweet, nothing phases her toddler, to this preschooler who, on a dime, would fly into rages where she couldn't calm herself down or be calmed by anyone else. I tried everything, it seemed like. Teaching boundaries and manners, regular routines and rhythms to give order to our day, strict adherence to schedules so transitions were anticipated and prepared for, even practicing together how to get through it, how to handle big emotions and upsetting circumstances. I taught with stories, I taught with lectures, we acted it out. All of it she took happily and agreeably. None of it helped in the moment. What comes naturally to you when your child screams? Do you have to shut them down or placate them? Do you feel like threatening and bullying them into submission, or does it not faze you and you just let it go on? What came naturally for me was to shut it down, either by a direct command, stop screaming now, or by dismissing her away from us until she could calm herself down. As most of what comes intuitively in parenting, I know this came from my own childhood patterns. And yet, I could tell it wasn't really working. I knew my daughter, and I knew that she didn't want to be this way. She wasn't trying to manipulate me. She wasn't enjoying throwing fits. She was totally out of control. Something was happening to her, and I had to figure it out. And it wasn't helping the underlying issue to just make the obvious symptom disappear from bothering me. One day we were going for a walk, and as I watched my little daughters walk ahead of me down the road, I heard the words, "Listen to Lucy." I almost missed it, but then I heard it again. Listen to her. So I began to try, and I realized a few things. She was born with a complete tongue tie, and we had only just revised it the year before. So it still took a lot of effort to understand what she was saying or for her to communicate. Her personality was calmer, peaceful. She didn't like to make waves. She went along with things easily, which meant that she often put up with a lot before she showed any symptoms of stress. She had an older sister who was verbally precocious and often talked over her, interrupted her, or interpreted what she was trying to say for others' benefit. We were in a busy season of life with multiple children and moving from one home to another. I came across a book by a woman named Patty Wipfler called Listen, and it taught me a technique called stay listening. This involves holding space for those big, inconvenient, uncomfortable emotions. Instead of sending the child away or shutting them down, it means you stay with them, literally, as they work through it. I wasn't trying to comfort her. I wasn't necessarily trying to explain or discuss. I wasn't even trying to stop the screaming. My job was to stay with her until she could calm down, helping if she asked for help or as she needed it. So I began to try, and it was incredibly hard for me. I found it so triggering. Besides the struggle to be with a child who's screaming, blood-curdling screams audibly, it was very triggering to my own internal desire to get away, to make it stop, to shut it down. It took us about 3 years, and I began to think we'd never get there. But by the time she was 8, she no longer screamed. And now she's a lovely young woman with an amazing capacity for emotional self-regulation. I'm grateful we got through that, but God was teaching me something deeper. Gordon Neufeld, a developmental child psychologist, says, "Every single emotion has its reason. It may be irrational, but it is a reason. We're not listening to our feelings," he says, "and we're not teaching our children to listen to them." I also had to learn to listen to me, to listen to my own inner self and give space for those big, inconvenient, and overwhelming feelings. Jenny was the nicest person you'd ever meet. She was always saying yes, always doing for others. She loved to help in any way she could, and she seemed and looked perfect until she found herself in a deep, deep depression. She was sure she was broken. She loved her family. She wanted to be with them. She enjoyed her friends. She liked saying yes to them. It wasn't until she stopped and began really listening to herself that she uncovered a deep anger. And in trying to figure that out, she realized that she'd been accommodating everyone else at the expense of suppressing her own needs, desires, and thoughts. She had been avoiding this anger that had made her so uncomfortable, and she had to make space within herself to feel that and to express it. It was uncomfortable for everyone around her. But like Jenny, when you know that it'll get heard, when you can say what you need to say, then that anger can channel and either evaporate or create goodness instead of flooding everything and overtaking your life and drowning you in depression. On the other hand, April felt so ignored and unappreciated at home. Unlike Jenny, she was not afraid of anger, and she wielded it like a club within the walls of her own home. Only her family saw and felt these outbursts, and while they walked on eggshells and ultimately avoided listening to her and drawing close to her all the more, April felt deeply ashamed and sorrowful. She tried to justify herself, but she never listened to the pain that was underlying her angry outbursts. She never fully listened to why she exploded, her own inner cries for help, and the vulnerability that accompanied them. And she wondered with sorrow what was happening as each family member began to distance themselves from her as soon as they could. Not listening to yourself doesn't solve the problem, even if you eventually stop hearing. It doesn't go away. It just festers and simmers until it erupts, sometimes towards others, like April, sometimes towards ourselves, like Jenny. Neither way is good for us, and both are destructive to our children. Just like learning to sit and really listen to my daughter brought us through an incredibly rough patch that I could have made worse by refusing to listen, by sending her off, by teaching her to shut it down. The same thing can happen to us. It might take time. It might challenge your inner reactivity. It might seem overwhelming to yourself and to those around you as you decipher and learn to moderate and respond to your little self, especially if you haven't been listening, if she's been spoken over and interrupted, interpreted for other people's benefit. But it's worth it to do that work. There's a peace, there's an honesty, there's a real freedom within yourself and in your other relationships that can't be replaced by any amount of managing circumstances or controlling other people. Learn to mother yourself. Learn to take care of yourself as the mother. Listen to yourself, hear what you're saying, and address it. If this hits a nerve, go check out my masterclass below.